Is it possible to start a farm in 2025? The cost of land is not going down anytime soon, and even if you're able to afford land and property and you can juggle the obvious expenses of starting a farm, managing livestock and selling livestock, selling any kind of food or products that come off of a farm, there is an entire world of overreach and overregulation by the government where you're about to find out that now that you've spent money on a farm and you want to get some of that money back to keep the farm going, that now you have to spend more money and more time to address government regulations. That doesn't mean that it's impossible though, and in this video I want to tell you how I think it's possible, even in 2025, without a background in farming. If you've never owned property, if you're not raised on a farm, that doesn't mean that you can't do this. I'm Steven, and this is Rowan Ridge Farm. I'm coming to you from the Hackett Swamp Meat Locker in the free state of New Hampshire, where I have a little 10-acre farm where we principally raise hogs and piglets. And I feel like I can speak with some authority on this matter of starting up because I've only been doing this for about 4 years. So a lot of the lessons I'm going to share with you are very fresh in my mind, and they're things that I'm still trying to work out. I hope that you will comment and let me know where you are in this process as we go through the video so that we can converse about this a little bit and compare some notes. The world needs more farmers. That doesn't mean that it's easy to get into. So I want to approach this topic by talking about 3 major categories, and I'll lay the chapters out in the description below if you want to take a look at that. But the first category that I want to deal with is mindset, because the way we think about farming is going to dictate our experience with it, or at least on some level it will. And the second category is going to be general principles that we should be adhering to in order to set ourselves up for success, setting goals, infrastructure, and making clear decisions that we can follow through on and assess based on our parameters starting out. And then the third category is really drilling down a little bit on the financial side and how to start from wherever you are to go from 0 to 1 in 2025. So let's talk a little bit about mindset. The biggest thing that I would say, hands down, is patience and the way we view time, because there are no shortcuts in the world of farming. There are no viral moments. You don't do this quickly. And that is because farming is about community. You can't skip the line. There's no way to build community quickly. When people are buying piglets from me, there's no way for them to get them off of Amazon or for me to send them through the mail. They have to come out here to the farm, shake my hand, see the operation I have going on, and we talk a little bit about, hey, what brings you here? What are you doing? But we make friends and we build community. And that's a rare thing in this day and age. Community used to be just baked into the cake that everybody had it because you saw each other at church, you saw each other at school, you saw each other at the football game on Friday night. Nowadays, people go in the house, they sit on their phone on YouTube, and hey, I'm not excluded from that. And we don't have obvious places to convene and to build community, but farming cannot exist without community. So you have to resign yourself to doing the work and looking at things from a marathon standpoint, not from a sprint standpoint, that will enable you to actually go through the process and not get discouraged because you think, I'm not succeeding fast enough, I'm making too many mistakes and things are going badly. But you have to understand that that is part of the process, and you have to make a certain amount of mistakes. You have to endure that difficulty because that is what builds your character and builds your farm. One of my favorite sayings about farming is that there is no livestock without dead stock. And I raise pigs, and that is the focus of my channel and what I'm doing here. But it is very emotionally challenging when you put in a lot of work to feed an animal that gets all the way up through the point of gestation, which is about 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days for pigs till they have their baby. So you spend a quarter of the year feeding this animal, getting everything ready, preparing the area physically where they're going to go for the farrowing. And then you're in there with them, trying to give them space, but also be there to help dry out the babies when they first come out, especially when it's cold. You want to help a little bit. And then sometimes the babies die. I've had sows that die. So you not only lose the babies, but you also lose the mom that you invested all this time and effort in. Sometimes you have moms that are like beautiful animals, but they squash all their babies and they're not able to keep any of their babies alive. And then you have to make the decision, do I give this animal another chance? Am I going to feed it for another 6 months and give it another chance? Or am I going to cull them and remove them from the herd because I've already spent money on them that I didn't get back because there's no piglets? These are the kind of decisions that you have to be detached enough mentally to make. At the end of the day, farming is self-sacrificial. There's no way to farm if you're going to do it on your terms. You're always doing everything for the good of other animals that cannot do it for themselves. You're doing things for the good of your community, for the good of your customers. You're out there on days when it's cold and the wind is blowing up your crack at 10 below zero when you would much rather be curled up inside. You're doing it first thing in the morning when you'd rather sleep in. You're doing it after work when you come home and you just want to eat dinner and go to bed because you have to get up at 5 the next morning to go back to work to earn money to help pay the bills on the farm because you're not a full-time farmer. You have to have that mindset of sacrifice. And the hard thing with mindset, there's no shortcuts to getting a different mindset about it. Knowing before you go is important, because if you know before you go, when you get there and you're faced with the reality of these things, you're able to look at it and say, okay, fair enough, but this is ultimately what I signed up for, so let's keep going, because it's going to get better. And it does, and it will. A lot of times when we're excited about an idea, we just have some general thoughts in our mind, but we don't really have clear points of success or failure that we're aiming at. One of the most important things I think that we should be thinking when we're starting a farm at this point in time is, are we doing this for ourselves or are we doing this for others? Is this a business operation where we're trying to make money and market a product? Or is this strictly for our own use, maybe for some friends, self-sufficiency, true homesteading? Or is this something where we want to actually keep track of what money is coming and going? If you are focused on producing enough for your family, that is going to change the way that you approach things versus if you are looking to have customers and build relationships there. And a lot of times people start producing for their family, but they get interest from others in their community and in their friend groups, and then they want to sort of expand, but there's not a clear decision to say, we started here and we did this, now we're going to take the next step. Things can get more challenging when you are starting a business and you're involving expectations from outside your group, from outside your family, because you have customers who have different needs. And if you are not prepared to be managing those needs and expectations, it's going to drop on you like a ton of bricks. The first year of farming, and this is something I did not do, but I would very, very, very highly recommend this for you if you are starting out in 2025. Take 1 year, volunteer your time at a farm that you like, whose practices match what you would like to do, and whose scale and scope matches something that you could more or less see yourself doing. Go there and ask, can I help? Can I volunteer? I'm thinking about getting into farming and I want to see how the sausage gets made. My guess is if you approach respectfully, there are very few farmers who are going to turn down somebody who wants to get a little experience, and you can learn a lot about the mistakes that they have made, about things that you want to do different from what they're doing, and you can actually get a feel for what farming is about and raising animals is about without having to own your own property and start off there. That puts you way ahead of the game. You can make up for a lot of lost time, and you can learn a lot of things that are going to help you take that next step, which is when you make permanent investments or semi-permanent investments that are much more committing. You won't be doing that and having to spend your first couple of years making mistakes that you're going to have to go back and undo over the next 5 years. You'll start out way ahead of the curve because you invested a little bit of time to do the unsexy work of volunteering and really learning before you get your own stuff and you start playing with it. Another big benefit, you get the opportunity to learn the local market. What sells and what doesn't sell. I know that there's a lot of people who go on YouTube and they watch videos about Idaho pasture pigs, for example. Everybody thinks, wow, they're a perfect homestead pig. They don't eat a lot of grain, so they're going to be cheaper. I can raise them on grass. We're going to have grass-fed pigs. That doesn't actually exist. There is no such thing as grass-fed pigs, and you still have to feed them grain. And then when you find out, once you actually get these pigs to your property, that they grow really slow, and you're like, uh-oh, I need to get them ready for the butcher, and you hit them with a bunch of grain, then they just put on fat because they don't really process grain the same way that certain other breeds of pigs do. you realize, uh-oh, I'm stuck with less profitable animals. And now when I'm out there trying to sell these animals, nobody wants to buy them. I'm saying this to just suggest that if you do a little research in your market and you know what sells and what people don't like, you can avoid a scenario like that. Know where in the market your animals are going to fit into so that you don't wind up on the ass end of the pyramid because you went with something you liked without actually seeing if the market also likes it in the area where you're located. Now, the last section here is about farming without the mortgage. It's expensive to own property. And if you're coming from a situation where you've rented most of your life, like I have, it's a ton of maintenance. And when the water heater goes out, you don't call your landlord and say, hey, my water heater's broken, and then he sends a guy in to fix it while you're at work the next day. No, you have to figure out where can I get a good price on a water heater, and then you have to find somebody, and then you have to pay them. And it's a lot of this broke, this is leaking, this needs to be repaired, just in owning a house, let alone maintaining land. And then we add animals, hay, feed, watering systems, pipes breaking in the winter. There's a lot of fun stuff like that that's involved in farming. And my point is not to say that it's bad or too difficult. You can start out without the mortgage. And what I would recommend is getting together with a group of people, even if it's one or two other people, and find a way to do bite-sized farming without having to buy land. You can buy piglets in the spring. You can lease some property for 6 months, and you can have 3-4 piglets there. And as long as you have a good working fence charger, you're buying piglets that are coming from somebody who has trained them to electric, so they're not going to be getting out and running all over the place. And you're close enough that between you and another person, you can keep an eye on them and keep them fed and watered. Again, you need to have the right arrangement with the right landlord who is looking to do this. But I know a lot of farmers around me who earlier generations of their family, they used to work 100 acres. Now they're older and getting out of farming. They're thinking about what they want to do with it. And if they have the ability to make friends with someone and to get some of their land used responsibly for raising some animals, and yeah, that's going to require you to put in a little infrastructure, T-posts and hog panels, just to make sure that everybody stays contained, rotating the pigs around the pasture and learning how to do that. But you can get a lease that will enable you to do this, and you can manage this with a couple of other people, defray the expense by having it shared appropriately. And then at the end of the lease, pigs go to the butcher, you stop paying for the land, and now you have a freezer full of meat. If you do a good job and you haven't made an enemy of the person who's holding your lease, you have the opportunity to reapproach that idea again in the fall. And in terms of the feeding, you can get automatic feeders. Some of these pieces of equipment that you would need, like porta-huts, feeders. I'm going to do a video about porta-huts because I love porta-huts and I think they're super cool. But you can get these pieces of equipment, install them or put them on the land that you have leased without doing any permanent installation or damage. And then when you're done, these items can go to your farm or to somebody's garage to sit until next year. Or when you say, okay, this was really cool, let's take the next step, I'm going to actually throw in and buy some land, then those can go with you, or you can resell them. But the idea is we eliminate the mortgage, we get our feet wet, we try it out, and it's got a time limit around it where at the end of this lease, these animals are going to the freezer, and then I can rethink if this is something that I want to do. And if I do want to continue with it, then I know what I'm doing a little bit more, and I can look at buying a piece of property with the experienced eye that says, oh, you know what? I got to watch out for this area. I'm going to pass on this property because it's got a real swampy area. It's got a lot of bad drainage on it. Or, oh, it's too rocky. I'm never going to be able to put fence posts in there. Forget it. There's things that you can look at and see once you've actually done some of that stuff. And unfortunately, you cannot learn that by watching YouTube videos, even YouTube videos that are wonderful like this one. There's still things that you can't use instead of real experience. Not everybody is supposed to be a farmer who's actually out there feeding hogs and then butchering them and selling them and castrating piglets. That's not for everybody. People can participate in farming without actually owning a farm, without actually raising the animals and getting in there and pulling piglets out of mama, because after experimenting and dabbling with some of this stuff, you might find out that, hey, I'm glad I didn't put a whole bunch of money into buying extra land and a farm with extra outbuildings and going all in. And maybe you save yourself a lot of time and misery, and you realize that the farming that you want to do doesn't actually involve owning the land. Maybe it's just helping out somebody else who has that, and you can circumvent a lot of hardship and suffering by following some of these steps that we've talked about in this video. If any of this makes sense to you and you want to hear more, subscribe to this channel. I'm going to be doing more videos about this stuff. I love hearing comments. I love having conversations so we can build community and make America farmers again. I'm Stephen. Thank you for taking this time to check out Rowan Ridge Farm, and we'll see you on the next video.